The day the news of Dylan Wang and Shen Yue's breakup first spread across social media, it felt like the entire entertainment world had been tipped on its head. Headlines shouted betrayal and heartbreak, while fans pieced together shaky theories from blurred paparazzi shots and half-heard conversations. But beneath all of that noise was a truth that no one dared to speak, a truth that began long before the official story was told. It started in the quietest way possible, in a small rehearsal room far from the set, weeks before filming was set to begin. Dylan had been pacing, his expression unreadable, while Shen Yue sat in the corner, flipping through a script she already knew by heart. He stopped in front of her, his voice low but steady. "We cannot keep pretending," he said. She looked up, meeting his eyes without flinching. "Pretending is all we have left," she replied. The tension between them was not new. It had been building silently over the years, woven into every smile they gave to the cameras and every moment they stood too far apart when the lights were off. Their chemistry on screen was undeniable, but off-screen, it had become something sharper, something fragile, something that could break at the wrong word. A week later, the moment that changed everything happened. They were on location for a shoot in the mountains, the air thin and cold. Between takes, Dylan had disappeared from the set, and no one could find him. Shen Yue was the one who finally went searching, following the winding path until she found him leaning against a railing overlooking the valley. "What are you doing out here?" she asked, her breath visible in the cold air. "Thinking about how far we have come," he said without looking at her, "and how fast it can all disappear." She stood beside him in silence, waiting for him to say more, but instead, he pulled something from his pocket. It was a folded letter, worn at the edges like it had been read over and over again. He handed it to her. When she opened it, her hands froze. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything they had been avoiding. It was not an apology, not exactly, but a confession of a truth he had been holding back for years. "You should not have shown me this," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I had to," he replied. "Because after this, nothing will be the same." And he was right. From that day, every glance between them seemed heavier. Every conversation a negotiation between what they wanted to say and what they could not risk letting slip. The distance grew in ways the cameras could not capture, but those who knew them saw the signs. Shen Yue started arriving late to set, her smile just a little less bright. Dylan stopped staying behind after shoots, disappearing the moment the director called cut. Then came the night of the industry gala. They arrived separately, both dressed impeccably, both pretending the air between them was not thick with everything unsaid. But fate has a way of forcing the truth out. At one point, they found themselves alone on the balcony, the music and chatter muffled behind the glass doors. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly. He turned to face her, his eyes shadowed. "Every day, I do not say what I really mean. I regret it." For a moment, she looked as if she might step closer, but instead, she turned away, her hands gripping the railing until her knuckles were white. "Then maybe it is better we stop here," she said, her voice breaking just slightly. Those words were the real ending, not the press statement that came weeks later, not the carefully crafted explanation of schedules and professional priorities. That balcony conversation was the moment their story shifted from something the world could admire to something only they could carry. But here's the part no one saw. After the gala, long after the guests had gone, Dylan waited in the parking lot, leaning against his car, his breath visible in the cold night air. Shen Yue walked past him without a word, her heels clicking against the pavement. Then, just as she reached her car, she stopped, turned, and for a fleeting second, their eyes met. It was not anger that passed between them, not resentment. It was something far more dangerous. It was the kind of truth that does not fade, no matter how far apart you stand. And that is why the official breakup story will never be the full story. Because the truth is, Dylan Wang and Shen Yue never really let each other go. The night was unusually quiet for the usually chaotic filming set. Hours earlier, the halls had been alive with crew members, echoing laughter, and the clatter of set pieces being moved. Now, only the dim lights above flickered softly, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Shen Yue sat in the corner of the small rehearsal room, her coat draped carelessly over the back of a chair, her script unopened on the table. She hadn't planned to stay, but something in her gut told her she needed to. The sound of footsteps broke the silence. Slow, deliberate, but heavy enough to carry a weight that words could not. Shen Yue turned her head before she even saw him. Dylan was there at the far end of the hallway, moving toward her. His baseball cap was pulled low, hiding most of his face, but the tightness in his jaw was unmistakable. He didn't greet her, didn't offer any smile or warmth. Instead, he stood a few feet away, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles were pale. "You left me no choice," he said at last, his voice low but sharp, like a blade carefully aimed. Shen Yue's expression remained unreadable. No choice for what? Without another word, Dylan unlocked his phone. A recording began to play. The sound was faint at first, but the moment Shen Yue heard the familiar tone of her own voice, her heart stopped. It was a conversation from months ago, one that had taken place late at night in a hotel room when they thought they were alone. Her voice in the recording trembled. "Do you ever think we made a mistake?" Then Dylan's voice answered, soft but weighted with truth. "Every day, but I didn't know how to stop." Shen Yue's lips parted slightly, her breathing unsteady. She reached out instinctively for the phone, but Dylan took a step back, his grip tightening. "Someone sent this to me," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "And they're threatening to leak it." For a long moment, neither spoke. The weight of the recording hung between them like a shadow they couldn't escape. Shen Yue's voice, when it finally came, was quieter than a whisper. "Then I guess it's already over." But Dylan didn't move. He didn't turn away. Instead, he stepped closer until there was barely any space between them. "No," he said, his voice shaking just slightly. "It's just beginning." Outside, the faint click of a camera shutter cut through the air, a sound so soft it could be mistaken for nothing. Neither of them noticed. The following minutes were a blur. Shen Yue gathered her coat, but Dylan caught her arm. "You don't understand," he said, his voice thick with urgency. "This isn't just about us. They want more. They know about the meeting in Hangzhou. They know about the letter." Her eyes widened, but she didn't speak. She didn't need to. The mention of the letter was enough to send a shiver down her spine. The letter was the one thing that could unravel not just their connection, but the careful web of secrets surrounding half the cast of their latest drama. A door opened somewhere behind them. A figure stood in the shadows, watching. Neither Dylan nor Shen Yue noticed until it was too late. The figure's phone light blinked once, then disappeared into the dark. When the story of that night would finally break, it wouldn't just be about a leaked recording. It would be about betrayal, power, and a chain reaction of scandals that no one, not even Dylan, could control. And somewhere deep down, Shen Yue knew this was the moment where everything changed. The room was silent except for the faint hum of an air conditioner and the sound of Dylan pacing back and forth. His hands were clenched so tightly it seemed as though he was trying to stop them from shaking. Shen Yue stood by the window, her gaze fixed on the lights of the city outside, as if the answers she needed were hidden somewhere in the skyline. "You heard it, didn't you?" Dylan finally asked, his voice low, but cutting. Shen Yue turned to face him, her eyes glassy and unreadable. She did not answer, but the look she gave was enough to confirm everything. The leaked recording had not just been a casual conversation, it was an admission, a moment where walls fell, where things said in whispers now echoed for the entire world to hear. The words carried a weight that could crush reputations and friendships alike. Dylan knew that the moment they were made public there would be no turning back. "I never wanted it to be like this," Shen Yue said, her voice trembling, but determined. "This was supposed to stay between us. We were supposed to protect each other." Dylan stepped closer, closing the gap until only inches remained between them. His eyes searched hers for any trace of the person he used to know before the cameras, before the rumors, before the endless waves of speculation. "Do you think they will stop now?" he asked, "or do you think this will feed them even more?" She looked away, unable to answer, because deep down she already knew the truth had a way of setting some people free, but for others it was a prison. Outside the apartment door, footsteps echoed. Someone was there, lingering just long enough to make both of them realize they were not as alone as they thought. Dylan moved quickly to open the door, but the hallway was empty. Only the faint click of an elevator door in the distance hinted that someone had been close enough to hear too much. Shen Yue grabbed her coat, ready to leave, but Dylan caught her wrist, his grip firm, yet desperate. "Don't go, not tonight, not when everything is about to fall apart." She hesitated, her lips parting as if she might say something, but no words came. Instead, she pulled free and walked out the door, leaving Dylan standing in the half-lit room, surrounded by the ghosts of everything they had tried to keep hidden. Downstairs, the air was thick with the scent of rain. The street shimmered under the streetlights, and every shadow seemed to watch her. Every step she took away from that building felt heavier than the last, as if the truth itself was chasing her. Dylan stayed at the window until her figure disappeared into the darkness, and only then did he let himself sink into the couch, closing his eyes, as if hoping the world would pause for just one more night. But the world did not pause, and by morning the leaked audio was everywhere. The media twisted every word, the fans dissected every pause, and their names trended in more countries than they could count. Messages flooded their phones from friends, from strangers, from people who swore they knew the truth. The problem was no one really did except for them. And now, with every passing hour, the distance between Dylan and Shen Yue was no longer just physical. It was something deeper, a fracture that could not be mended easily. The truth was out, but the cost of it was only beginning to show.